After Trudeau targeted the Indian government, India has now responded to Canada, calling the allegations absolutely baseless. India has called out Canada's bid to discredit the Indian government. In a press briefing, the Ministry of External Affairs said that a note has been sent giving India's disapproval, saying this is a conscious strategy that Canada has been employing to discredit India, and condemned the same, and has called it an irresponsible statement by Canada without any evidence whatsoever. In fact, India went on to say that a note has also been sent in this regard after seeing these reports. The representative of the Canadian High Commission had been summoned, and a diplomatic note was handed over in reference to the proceedings of the Standing Committee on Public Safety and National Security in Ottawa. And it has been conveyed that the government of India protests in the strongest terms to the absurd and baseless references that have been made. My colleague Pradeep Datta is joining us on the broadcast with the details. Pradeep, the Ministry of External Affairs saying that not only are the allegations baseless and absolutely absurd, there's been no evidence in this regard, saying that there could be political compulsions by the Trudeau government is making these statements, but it will have an impact on the India-Canada relations.
Yes, Pratima, you're absolutely right, because very strong protest has been lodged by the Indian government, and already in this regard they have presented a diplomatic note to them also, and rightly said, because there has been no evidence in the past also when they leveled allegations of India trying to kill many of those separatist leaders putting up in Canada, and the terror leaders putting up there, and that time also they didn't provide any evidence. But now they have gone one step further. One, they're trying to blame India for the espionage. Second, they're trying to blame in one of the India's minister for being involved in killing of those terror commanders and the terror leaders and the separatists putting up there in Canada. So that's why India has lodged a very strong protest in this regard, and definitely it's going to have an impact on the Indo-Canadian relationship. But what is more unfortunate is that on several occasions, government of India has presented them dossier about involvement of many of those Khalistani terrorists in several terror-related incidents in India. But not a single person had either been interrogated. They have not taken any action against them. Instead, what they're trying to do is they're trying to discredit Indian government. They're trying to prove as if India is involved in the terror-related activities. Indian government has never ever been involved in such terror-related activities, because last time during the inquiry commission also, Justin Trudeau had said that he has got the intelligence input. And see from whom he got the intelligence input. We have already here on Time Now shown the letter that has been written by Gurpatwant Singh Pannu. Gurpatwant Singh Pannu is again a designated terrorist involved in incident where he has been trying to instigate people, once again trying to take Punjab back to those 80s days when terrorism used to call shots in Punjab. So he had written a letter. He wanted that the Indian ambassador, High Commissioner, need to be expelled. So who is dictating terms to the Canadian government? It is the terrorists against whom the dossier has been presented by Indian government. And if Niger is, somebody should ask them a question. If Niger is a Canadian citizen, why his bank account was frozen, why he was on the no-fly list? That means they had evidence, but then because of those political compulsion, vote bank politics, they are not acting against all those Khalistani terrorists. What they're instead trying to do, they're trying to discredit Indian government. They're trying to project and portray India in bad light, as if India is involved in the terror-related activities, and those terrorists who are being provided safe haven, as if they are the Messiah of peace.
Absolutely, and not to forget, the Canadian officials have also admitted to leaking unfounded insinuations to the international media as well. Pradeep, request you to stay with us. Just want to play out for our viewers the statement that has been issued by the Ministry of External Affairs.
We had summoned the representative of the Canadian High Commission yesterday. A diplomatic note was handed over in reference to the proceedings of the Standing Committee on Public Safety and National Security in Ottawa on October 29th, 2024. It was conveyed in the note that the Government of India protests in the strongest terms to the absurd and baseless references made to the Union Home Minister of India before the committee by Deputy Minister David Morrison. In fact, the revelation that high Canadian officials deliberately leak unfounded insinuations to the international media as part of a conscious strategy to discredit India and influence other nations only confirms the view Government of India has long held about current Canadian government's political agenda and behavioral pattern. Such irresponsible actions will have serious consequences for bilateral ties.
Colonel RSN Singh joins us on the broadcast. Colonel Singh, time and again we've seen such statements come in from Canada with no evidence that's provided. So India has made it clear that the statements that have been made from Canada are going to have a serious consequence in the India-Canada bilateral.
It's already having an impact, I suppose. And,
yes.
Things have gone too sour, by now. And very difficult to be bridged at the moment. If something, if the Canadian government, the initiative lies with them, if they don't try and, bridge this chasm. So I can only say that, yes, the divide between the two, the diplomatic divide between the two countries is growing. And, madam, it is not on account of just, ostensibly it seems that something, Niger was killed. And, linkages are even to the U.S. There is a whole ecosystem. And somewhere these, the Canada, U.S. combined, they feel that the entire ecosystem of this Khalistani weaponization that they had created, it's somewhere under threat. Not realizing the fact that if you try and weaponize Khalistanis, there are enough people on the American and Canadian soil who will contest them. Because if there are anti-India elements, you can be sure that there would be some patriotic elements also within Canada who will resent them. And and we also know that in this entire ecosystem, you can count the Pakistan ISI also, and the narcotics angle also, and organized crime also. So that is why I am saying that, things have become far too serious than why you and I ostensibly what we are being bandied about. But the fact of the matter is that, why this now? Geopolitically, why? This is because, after a lot of persuasion and maybe, veiled threats or maybe, threats that we are not aware of, diplomatic threats, we have refused to be pivoted away from Russia in this Russia-Ukraine conflict. And that is one reason why this, you see this kind of a posturing, by the so-called Five Eyes intelligence. Now, I know the other day I asked this question, and again I'm going to ask you and your viewers that tell me how does India react against this kind of a proxy war? That you say that it is my right to use proxies against you, and when I try and defend myself diplomatically and in other ways, then you don't allow me to do it. What kind of a world order is this? Are we paying the price for unipolarity? A person sitting in US, he threatens that he will blow up Air India aircraft. He says that he'll blow up the parliament. He says that he will kill the Prime Minister of India. What if somebody sitting here on the Indian soil were to say same things about their head of state?
Absolutely. And in fact, in its statement, the Canadian police also admitted that it was not towards the Canadian citizens, but towards the Khalistani elements. And this admission has come in, and yet you have Canada continuing to stay its stand. Thank you for joining us, Colonel Singh. We have Rishabh also joining us on the broadcast. He also attended the briefing with the Ministry of External Affairs. Pradeep, before I come to you, Rishabh, the Ministry of External Affairs has said time and again that these are absurd and baseless allegations. They've said it's having an impact on the India and Canada relations as well. In fact, in the latest, India also summoned Canadian officials over these allegations, and yet there seems to be no change in stance.
Well, Pratibha, definitely. MEA has very categorically slammed Canada for the basis allegations that they have made against Indian Home Minister Amit Shah. The External Affairs Ministry goes on to say that the way these baseless attacks on India are happening from Canadian government, that is further going to escalate the matter, and situation will be troublesome. And in a way, India very categorically responding to Canada, saying that what you're doing is not correct. Also goes on to External Affairs Ministry spokesperson Randeep Jaiswal, while responding to Times Now question, actually goes on to say that the way Canadian government or Canadian government officials are responding, India has summoned a Canadian High Commission representative here in Delhi. A note of protest was handed over, and India has protested in a strong manner against these baseless propaganda that Canada is going with, and they have very categorically said that these attacks on Indian nationals, Indian leadership will not be tolerated.
Absolutely. In fact, let's play out that reaction, the statement that was issued by the Ministry of External Affairs. Listen in.
We had summoned the representative of the Canadian High Commission yesterday. A diplomatic note was handed over in reference to the proceedings of the Standing Committee on Public Safety and National Security in Ottawa on October 29th, 2024. It was conveyed in the note that the Government of India protests in the strongest terms to the absurd and baseless references made to the Union Home Minister of India before the committee by Deputy Minister David Morrison. In fact, the revelation that high Canadian officials deliberately leak unfounded insinuations to the international media as part of a conscious strategy to discredit India and influence other nations only confirms the view Government of India has long held about current Canadian government's political agenda and behavioral pattern. Such irresponsible actions will have serious consequences for bilateral ties.